Hey guys, Rex here. It is an absurdity to think that the United States is going to experience the life force, the energy we once had back in the 1770s, the 1780s, in the colonial times, without returning to the source of life. Why was it so full of life in those days, but so devoid of proper life these days? If you turn on the news, it is a cuckoo clock. A cuckoo clock. I literally don't pay attention anymore. It is hilarious to me. Turning on the news, I'm like, it's a Monty Python skit. In all of reality, that Lucifer in his little magic mirror that's in your pocket, the Lucifer mirror, the rectangle of death, right? The digital crack pipe of death that you keep in your pocket called your cell phone, which literally is a messenger of light because it uses light to communicate electromagnetic radiation from tower to tower. Fiber optic cables, Wi-Fi, that's light, by the way, in terms of physics and engineering. And it's sending you messages, messenger of light. What do you think that might be in the last days? And it shall be given power to speak as a man. And the people will have no rest day or night, those that pay attention to that damn thing all the time. Yeah, I know. I read it. I read about this in the Bible. We think we're going to have life without returning to the source of life. You didn't pass biology then, man. In biology, there's rules. Life only comes from life. It does not come from a rock. It doesn't. Now, they edited some of the textbooks in the last 12 years. I have college textbooks that explain this dilemma. They're like, we don't want to talk about origins because they know it's impossible to get life from non-living stuff. Well, they made some in the lab, Rex. The scientist went into the lab and he put the stuff in a test tube and synthesized it and got a microscope and measured it. And he put in all the amino acids. And then, they electrocuted it, and an amino acid happened. So you put in the components to make amino acids in a lab. A smart guy called a scientist, and you think that life came out of nothing? The scientist is life. That is biogenics playing out. It took intelligence to do that, and he did a terrible job compared to what is there already. Congratulations, Mr. Scientist. Trust the science, Rex. Yeah, what? They're going to do a crappy copy of what's already been good before? They're going to rebuild stuff based on the models that are pre-existing and then claim they did something when they just take the elements and try to connect it together, and they literally are and they got a crayon. And they're tearing through the paper, and they're drawing stick figures, literally. And they point at it, and they show you this torn up piece of paper that there's mustard dripped out of their mouth from the sandwich they had stuck to their shirt. Scientists and their amazing wisdom. And then they show you a few discombobulated amino acids on their paper they tore in half with a crayon. And they're not even oriented in any coherent fashion to create a polypeptide chain. I invented life in a laboratory. Good job. Good job. No, you didn't. You did a terrible job. That's about where we're at. I mean, if you want to study the methods and materials, it proves that it took a scientist to make a really crappy counterfeit version of an amino acid that was improperly oriented and dissolved within a few seconds. Good job. You see, we quote stuff from our teachers from the third grade continuously without any depth of knowledge. No depth of knowledge. We continue to quote our teachers from the third grade as if it was gospel. Well, Mrs. Popke said that the scientists made life in a lab. I said, then I'm going to argue when I'm 47 years old. Rex, that's not what my teacher said. I know what your teacher said. Your teacher was Not privy to the full info. They learned it in a school. We want life to reinvigorate our country. But you refuse to acknowledge the source of life. You cut yourself off by your disobedient lawlessness from the life source. And then as you're dying from cutting yourself off from the life source, you're like, what's that? Unbelievable. Like these, like the science, I'm into science. Well, yeah, 72 inches away from these viral compounds, and like it's totally safe. 71 inches away, it'll kill you. And I can like wear this thing here. Remember, do you guys not remember the last 3 years? Well, the scientists, oh, they're so smart, aren't they? Yeah, they're real smart. Like you can you can pull it off to eat a chicken nugget and then put it back on. And then like, oh, that's trust the science, Rex. Trust the science. Like, people have proven themselves because they so enthusiastically had to report to you, oh, we don't believe in God. We believe in science. In the last 3 years, freaking like preschool clown show of stupidity. And people are lapping it up just like, delicious. It's fuck. Like lapping it up, consuming that as if that's the veritas. I assure you, it is not the veritas. Do not confuse and conflate an accumulation of knowledge and technology over thousands of years of existence with billions of people working on stuff for intelligence of a scientist. There's a difference between engineers and scientists. I'm a scientist. There's an award-winning scientist, top one in my university. There are normal people like me and you. Do not let anyone convince you that life didn't just squirt it out of nowhere. That's retarded. We're not going to get life for this country by doing the same thing. You see, everyone wanted to tear God's rules out of the equation because, it's just, we don't want any rules in the school. We don't want any rules in the courthouse. We got to take them down. The 10 Commandments, we never followed them anyways, but we don't even want to see them around here. They take them down, and then what happens in a decade? Clown World 2023. I'm the bearded lady. What are you? One of the freaks? It's like Spaceballs Monty Python skit on crack. Every time you turn on the news, it's ridiculous, isn't it, guys? And when I turn it on, it is so alien to me because I do not normally pay attention. People send me stuff on text. I'm like, that's made up. There's no way in hell that's possible. It's impossible that could be true. But it probably is partly true because we have disconnected ourselves from the rules of life. It's funny, I get in trouble sometimes on here. Who do you think would hate God's rules the most? Satan? Probably some heavy metal guys? Probably those dirty skateboarding kids? No. It's his people that use his name in vain, who put his name on their building and then preach you a different Christ than is supposed to be in that building. We were told this is going to happen. The mother of harlots would do her magic to the world. And they would call evil good and good evil. And the last thing I have never met as much resistance to God's standards of righteousness as I have from the church in America. We have the Patreon channel. And I share all kinds of fun stuff over there. We do all kinds of studies on a multitude of things, the fabric of the universe, how the math and the fabric and the chemistry of the universe is put together. And then we advanced survival system concepts, long-range shooting typologies, and literal stuff. Right now we're going over alignment in axial alignment of the system to hit long-range targets. Facts and stuff like play out in reality when you're actually doing real things. So we're talking about that a lot over there. Every once in a while I'll post these quotes from the Bible. From the Bible, man. King David quotes. Exodus, hey, remember that one time God's people were righteous? Or they struggled with that, but then when they did the right thing, then they got rewarded and they won. The Third Reich Christianity that exists in the United States comes out and has a conniption fit. They lose their minds when they hear that God has some kind of standard. Well, we don't like that around here. You're preaching some kind of works gospel. It sounds like works to me. Excuse me. Quit using church words that you invented, works gospel. When you erase his standards of righteousness, what happens to the earth? Look what happened. Who opened up the floodgates to hell? I stood at the cave, the Pantheon cave that was released, Pan's Cave, up near Teldown, the gateway to hell. They did a channel that is showing that to remind me. I'm like, yeah, me and the wife stood right in front of there one time. What the hell is that? That's kind of an eerie place. And oh, that's Pan's Cave. That's been there for 4,000 years. Really terrifying, bad. That's where all the, bad spirits came out and were loosed upon the earth. There's the gateway to hell over in northern Israel from way back, 4,000 years ago. And they did all kinds of ridiculous human sacrifices. And that's actually, Yeshua, Jesus. He took his apostles there, and that's where he declared that the gates of hell shall not prevail against his system, which is different than we have now with Babylon the Great. You have to be able to discern the difference. Why would the gates of hell not prevail against his deal? Because he protects those that are within the protection of his standards. It's from cover to cover of the Bible. But yet, the biggest resistance you'll have to falling in love with the righteousness of the Creator is what I will call the apostate church, but it might be known to you in churchianity in America as the place that everyone goes. They have opened up the floodgates. They have infiltrated the school systems. They've gotten in charge of all the teaching positions, and they said, everything's fine. We don't want to make anyone offended. We don't ever want to. The gospel is no longer about righteousness. The gospel is now about never hurting anyone's feelings. It's not what he said. He says, I have not come to bring peace to the world. I have come rather to bring a sword of discord and sow division between parents and their children. Over what? Over the truth. The truth. The world is thirsty for the truth. The world is dying from not having the water of truth. The water of life is free to drink, but you have to drink it. And this country is showing symptoms of an insane person as they're dying of thirst on day 2 or 3 with no water. You're not coherent after about 2 days without water. This country is not coherent without the water of life. Who turned off the spigot and broke the pipe? Who opened up the floodgates to hell? It wasn't the heavy metal biker guys. It wasn't all the types that the church people accuse. Oh, that guy doesn't have a tucked-in shirt. That's such a naughty word, Rex. Literally nowhere in the scripture. They make up their own rules and they tear down his rules. We don't want to hear from the Old Testament, old and stupid. That's what Jesus preached. The Pharisees came and said, wow, everything he's basically saying is what the prophets have said, but he brings life to it. There was half of them were really good. They were supporters. The other half didn't like his politics or lack thereof. He wasn't enthusiastic about kissing their religious butts. The same thing happened now. We inherit the same problem. Did you know that from the time from Moses, who has delivered the absolute truth on the mountain of truth, the beautiful truth packaged in this beautiful sapphire foundation handed to us, right? But after a while, after a number of years, they fell away and they got lost and they became the lost sheep of Israel and they got conquered multiple times because they fell away from it. That would never happen to, Roman Christianity and Greek Christianity and American Christianity and German Christianity, Rex. We're a certain denomination. We're the true people. Preaching how awesome you are in your chair does not make that the way it is. What comes out through the actions? You know how to identify it? By the fruits. If you don't have the fruits of the truth, just righteousness, sanctification, it's evidence that there is no truth. He told us that repeatedly. He says, on the last day, verily, verily, will I tell them, I do not know you. Get out of my sight. And they're going to be like, hey, we did all this church stuff in your name. We fed these people. We had programs. We had singing programs, mission fields. We passed out all these, things that we did. He's like, I don't even know who you guys are. Get out of my sight. You who do what? What did he say in the Bible? You who work lawlessness. Don't fling church words around that you don't know where they come from, that defy the entire program. Stuff is not super difficult to figure out unless you are married to the whore. And what the whore has to say is more important than what he said repeatedly. America will not be saved. America only existed in the first place because we were humble in the sight of the Lord. We were seeking to be set apart from the rest of the world in the wilderness. Why did we come to the wilderness? So we could worship him. We had our exodus from all over the world to get here to the United States so that we could worship him in truth and life in the full light of the way it's supposed to be, so it could flesh out organically. It's just so impossible to think that this great nation would suffer from the same decadence that all prosperity creates. When we get a little lackadaisical, we have all the material worldly comforts we'd ever need. We fall away from need of him. And pretty soon, you're in a Monty Python skit. Woo! Guys send me the stuff that I'm just like, it's tragically hilarious. Because I know what's going to happen. The judgment, he already wrote that. What side do you want to be on, man? There's no hope to save this country without coming back and grafting back into the life source. And that might possibly have nothing to do with your little building with stained glass windows in it. Maybe it's the antithesis of that life. Be careful. He warned us that this would happen again. It's a repeating pattern. It's repeated so many times from cover to cover in that book. And it does say in the last days it would happen on a huge scale. What is Babylon, the great whore, judged for doing in the last times? That great city sits on 7 hills, right? A lot of you might have an idea what that is. That's worldwide in its most huge, in its most full form. That's worldwide apostasy against God, not just one denomination. All the daughter harlots are just as guilty as mommy harlot. What is she guilty of doing that's so terrible? She didn't believe in Jesus, Rex. Excuse me, Lucifer believes in Jesus. Lucifer knows all about him. Like all the demons know about him. They got cast out by him. They're scared of him. They believe in him. They didn't want to wrestle with him. They're terrified about getting thrown back into the abyss. not about believing in something. It's about choosing to center your life on obeying that source. Babylon gets judged for her wickedness, her twistedness, lawlessness, debaucheries, filthiness, every unclean spirit and foul bird that could exist. Read the list of stuff she did that was wrong. Those are all laws of God she violated. And yet, American churchianity has a conniption fit hearing that God has laws. Good luck with that. I don't want to hear any Christian guy ever again in the United States who's preaching against obedience to what he said to do, having a conniption fit when Rex brings it up. Hey guys, maybe we should look at what his standards are and try to center our lives on that. He gave us that ruler for a reason, to help us. He loves us. He loves us, man. I want to hear more about Jesus. What did Jesus preach? Literally the whole time. He wants you to live like he did. How did he live? He didn't sin, right? What does that mean? He didn't break the laws, man. Well, that's not how you're saved. You're talking about a different topic now. What happens when you are saved for real? Nobody remembers. Nobody remembers. What happens when you actually love someone? You fall into line to please them. You want to be close to them. You don't want to be separated anymore. You don't want to hurt them anymore. And then, like, you're going to hurt God. Here we are, America 2023. And the person leading the cuckoo farm are your church guys that hate God's law. And they are they're already typing in the comments, just hammering away, emotionally possessed by unclean spirits. I have the spirit, Rex. Which spirit? Do you know how to vet those spirits according to the word? According to the law? The law tells you which spirit is which. You have to vet the spirit, because there's a third of the heaven that was cast to heaven, or the third of the heaven was cast to earth. A third of the heaven was cast here. All those, like, legions and legions and legions were cast to the earth. You're just going to listen to anything that whispers in your ear? With no rules? Why do you think he gave us the rules? If you're fighting against the 10 Commandments, if you're fighting against his other laws, well, just the 10. Oh, well, then why are you so mad at the weirdos with the clown makeup, prancing around on the stage in front of your, first graders? Why are you mad at that? That's not in the 10 Commandments, is it? Oh, it's a different one. Yeah, where is that? It's in his law. These guys are like cross-dressing and acting weird. I know that's in his law. You can't do that. A dude cannot put on chicks' clothes, according to that book. Well, we don't want to talk about that. Well, you're going to freaking suffer the consequences of reality.